welcome to our InMobi Telco Fireside Chat. Today, we're going to have a great conversation ahead of you all about 5G and the hidden monetization opportunities that it presents. We have three fantastic speakers joining us today, and I will let all of them introduce themselves, starting with Arun.
Thanks, Matt. This is Arun. I work for part of the Geo Platforms group at a group company called Radisys. I head the network services business unit at Radisys. I joined the Geo group about 3 years back, primarily because since the success of Geo, there has been a lot of interest from global telcos to understand and learn and repeat the success and the disruption Geo did in India elsewhere across the world. Hence, I joined that to evangelize and promote the Geo way, so-called Geo way, through Radisys, which already has a lot of relationship with global operators across the world. That's what I do. Over back to you. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks, Arun. And Laksh, very happy to have you. Can you give a little folks tuning in a little bit overview of who you are and what your role is?
Of course. Thank you, Matthew. I'm an associate partner with McKinsey in New York. With McKinsey, I spend most of my time serving telcos globally, including North America. And to do that, I play at the junction of network and consumer, which means both deployment and monetization. So I end up spending a lot of my time working with CEOs and CTOs with different telcos globally in helping them deploy and monetize 5G.
And thank you, everybody. My name is Rajat. I'm based here in San Francisco, and I head the global market development for InMobi's Telco business unit. It's a very unique business unit that we have, a setup where we work with telcos, carriers, both from network perspective to device perspective in terms of monetizing the assets that they are building, primarily on direct relationship with carriers and OEMs globally. Thank you.
Fantastic. A real fantastic group of speakers that we have here today. So now let's dive into the questions. So Laksh, this first one is for you. As you mentioned, you work a lot with telcos around 5G. Certainly I think for telcos, it's going to be, they have to upgrade their networks to 5G if they're not already doing so. But that's a major capital expenditure that telcos now have to undertake. As telcos are finalizing their 5G rollouts, how is that impacting how they think about the ROI of such an investment?
Of course. So if I look at telcos as a whole, I think the question of investing in 5G is to invest or not to invest is something that in some geographies that is still a question. In many others, operators have moved on from there and are already investing and thinking of how do they maximize their ROI. Overall, I would say globally, we expect over the next 5 years, from between 2020 to 2025, we expect about a little over $1 trillion to be spent on CapEx, on wireless. Three quarters of that is going to be all 5G related. And this is when you're looking at it globally. When you zoom into the markets like US, Korea, and some of the markets in Europe, which are already leaping towards 5G and are in the process of doing that, the amount will get closer and closer to 100% in terms of investment being in 5G. And I believe the operators are going to try and keep their CapEx to revenue ratios pretty constant while investing in. There's a lot of still gray around how operators are thinking of monetizing. There's a lot has been done. Still a lot needs to be yet to be done. So there's definitely a big question mark on making sure the ROI can still be captured. If I talk about how much of an operator really spends, the story is really moves from one operator to the other and one geography to the other. I mean, the US and Canada being neighbors, large telco in Canada would typically spend I would expect them to spend about $1 billion in CapEx, versus when you look at the likes in the US, the large ones, you'd expect anywhere between $7 to $12 billion in CapEx a year on the wireless side, and most of it being 5G driven. Now, this CapEx, I would say, needs to be recovered in about a 7 to 10 year period, like any other CapEx that telcos have done in the past, which means given that 4G has still not been fully recovered in many markets, there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of focus that needs to be thought about monetization. And I think we did not fully capture the 4G monetization, and operators need to really think hard and do it better this time.
Yeah, and I'm glad, Laksh, that you mentioned monetization, because that really segues nicely to our next question for Arun. So, in this world for telcos, not only are all the capital expenditures, the CapEx that needs to be invested, but also there's just a lot of competition coming from kind of mobile first, more software players like the Googles and the Facebooks of the world. In this kind of environment with pressure on two sides, as it were, how are telcos thinking about monetization, and how should they be thinking about it?
Yes, it's a great, segue, especially considering a lot of investment that is going to be needed over the next 5 to 10 years. So the traditional telcos, and the main reason why they still haven't, developed a lot of ad-based revenue is purely because of the business model. It's not about regulation. It's not about the concern of data privacy. As you know, all of us today assume that our emails are read by Google, so we don't mind that, right? Same goes for all our public, but we don't mind that, and we do trust our privacy with these companies, and if we will do the same with telcos as well. The problem is about the organization of the telcos. Today, the telcos business model is predominantly a subscription-based model. In order for them to transform that, they need to look at their business model, and then they need to accordingly reorganize their organizations towards true monetization. And if you look at the way the Geo digital business is monetizing using their super app, and also the close relationship with the Geo retail business, and is something that is very unique, and I think they have done that very successfully, being an operator as well as being a digital lifestyle service provider. And I'm not saying anything that is not very well known in the market. That's very well known in the market, and I think that's something that that we generally work with when we advise our operator customers on the pricing and promotion monetization strategy. This is what we help them develop and evolve. I don't know if Laksh, you probably have a more view on this from your standpoint as well.
No, I totally agree with you, Arun, in terms of the opportunity that was lost and the opportunity that still exists. I am 100% in line with you.
Yep.
Yeah, and so Rajat, I think Arun brought up a really interesting point around advertising, and I know that that's obviously a core strength for InMobi. So how at InMobi are we thinking about how sort of our advertising business and how that how we can kind of apply that to the telco side of affairs?
I think one of the changes that we as InMobi realized long back, being a mobile only player, which was our focus in 2007, almost more than a decade ago, was this business is very consumer first and not advertiser first. The entire ad tech industry was built as an advertiser first business model, where everything was pivoted around advertiser and their burn and their KPIs. But telco world is very consumer first. So when InMobi started building out the assets for telco monetization, we were always consumer first. We would start off with the consumer property, try to figure out how the engagement on the property would look like, because a telco's name is associated with that. Sometimes an OEM's name is associated with that. We are very highly embedded into, for example, on Samsung devices. We can't really do things as an unregulated flat band ad tech player out there, because we are embedded into some really pivotal brands. And if we tie back into a carrier, we not only inherit their brand responsibilities, we also inherit their regulatory responsibilities. which is a very, very big difference between how ad tech business has always been built as an unregulated database and a marketplace. Main problem with targeted advertising, and Laksh and Arun both will agree, is for last 12, 15 years, we have seen that there is as much bad data or fraudulent data available in the internet as there is good data. So if there's an advertiser who comes on board, half of your advertising dollars will be wasted. Only half will be very productive. And we all have heard about the statements like, we don't know which half is productive. So we basically lose half the money. And everybody was okay with this kind of efficiency. But the telco data set is the only data set which is 100% pure and deterministic. It is gold for advertisers. Problem is, how do they access this data set that lies in between the firewalled gardens of a telco? And then there are regulatory challenges. We know this data set cannot do things that, let's say, a Google's data set or Facebook's or Instagram's data set can do. This is where InMobi came in. We realized in 2018 when we did the deal in US with Sprint, and trust me, for getting that deal through, InMobi had to work with every 3-letter agency in the US, whether it was FCC or FTC or DOJ or CFIUS. And because we were building a telco out platform, we were thinking PPDR in Canada, we were thinking GDPR, we were thinking TRA in Asia and Middle East. And the platform was grounds up built to be telco first platform and a consumer first platform. We ingest data not only from the network directly from the, let's say the cell tower assets and even from the NMS systems of a carrier, we also overlay a lot of web and app session data on top of it. So everything that consumer does in the internet space, all the internet activity, we are able to overlay all of that together to create a digitalographic profile, which is apographic plus the physicalographic profile of the user together. And advertisers can access that because what we did is we took these assets, which we acquired from Sprint and a bunch of other assets we built over the last 10 to 12 years with the core buy side and sell side stack. I think that is very important. If you give a buy side and sell side stack to the telco along with the central DMP, which houses its own data, you have a complete ad tech ecosystem where advertisers can trustfully bid and buy assets directly from a telco. This marketplace is not an open marketplace or open auction marketplace where people are just overlaying data from third-party data sources. It's a very trusted environment. And I think it took us a lot of time to build it, but now it has been built. We definitely are looking at players like Jio who understand the internet economy really well. And also many players in Europe and Americas, which we have seen, they're jumping into that holistically to kind of exploit that natively.
Awesome. Thanks, Rajat. And so, Laksh, my next question is for you. So, we've talked about advertising, about some other monetization options, certainly both here in the US and globally, we've seen telcos, go a variety of different routes in order to, monetize their assets, monetize their audiences. Going forward in the next 5 years, are there certain monetization routes that you're seeing telcos gravitate towards?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think we all agree there is 5G creates a significant opportunity for operators to monetize and to rightly exactly and to exactly in the same direction as you said. Operators are gravitating towards some versus the others because they feel and see they can add more or create more value over there in some of those verticals, or let's call them value pools. And we've been working with operators and we feel some of the verticals emerge as the top ones versus the others. And namely, I would say healthcare, manufacturing, energy, utilities, automotive and transport. And another interesting category when you look at the world from both B2B and the B2C world together, enhanced video also comes as a segment of its own. And across these verticals, the value pools lie in 3 blocks that cut across each of these verticals: solutions, enablers, and premium connectivity. And if I have to put a number to it, I believe across this, the 5G value pool for the market for 2025 within the US alone should be about $30 to $40 billion. But capturing this opportunity will really require to be strategic, operators to be strategic about these verticals and where to play in the stack.
Yeah, Laksh, I think that brings up a really interesting point of 5G really brings about this expansion of what's connected and what's possible. There's just going to be so many connected devices, going forward, and all of that connectivity is just enabling so much possibilities in auto, in the home, really in so many spheres. And so, Arun, this my question for you. Jio has been so disruptive in India. As we're talking about this new world of 5G, in which not just people, but really everything around us is being connected, and connected with much faster connectivity, much greater possibilities. How is Jio really kind of thinking about the internet economy, when everything is part of the internet?
Yes. So when Jio is looking at what they probably, you might have read in the press about the Jio's they're calling it as a new commerce, not e-commerce or m-commerce. They're calling it as a new commerce. Basically, what they plan to do is not eliminate the middlemen, but rather leverage the middlemen and use them as the last mile delivery services. So that's this is, again, it's unique to India. In India, it's a high touch economy. Unlike the US and most of the developed world, where we all go to a big box store to buy stuff. Whereas in India, still more than 80% go to the small shops to buy their regular day-to-day items. So that's what Jio has done, is to collaborate with the small, what they call as Kirana stores. It's Indian terminology. So to leverage and deliver them, including the Jio's retail arm also has the Jio Digital Life is the name, big brand store, but they also have a Jio Digital mini digital stores. They are like a small stores, but you can buy anything from refrigerator to the TVs to the big box, white good items you can buy through this. And this is a mixture of an complete digital delivery, but last mile delivery and servicing done by these local partners. And that's the Jio kind of way of doing things. This is how they look at delivering value to this mass of population in India. Again, this is unique to the Indian context, may be applicable to similar economies, but not everywhere else, may not be that applicable to everywhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, Rajat, my next question is for you. In this environment, of 5G, of the Internet of Things, what does it truly mean to build like a telco out offering that truly empowers telcos?
I want to take the segue from what Arun and Laksh mentioned about the growing commerce as we move from 4G to 5G. One of the pivotal nuanced things which we mentioned, and I think Reliance is kind of cracking that in a very unique way at scale. I think Reliance does has a power of the scale, unlike any other telco in various markets, is that around 97, 98% of all the commerce you see on mobile phone today, whether it's your mobile commerce or app commerce, that is happening directly between the consumer and the apps. Either that or between the consumer and the walled gardens, of large walled gardens, duopoly, triopolies that you have seen. Unfortunately, a telco really doesn't get anything out of this mobile commerce that is running over the top of the telco. And this is definitely the same problems we had back in early 2000s when the SIP and WIPE came into picture, and telcos were basically just a dumb pie, people running applications on top of the infrastructure. But the same, it just exacerbates in 5G. The amount of CapEx deployments that telcos have to do to provide that connected industry, connected architecture, connected device economy, what are telcos gaining out of that? They don't have any fundamental assets available at their disposal that can hook them into this commerce so that they can tap into this commerce, of course, add some value because the connectivity is a big value addition, but then tap some monetization out of it. That doesn't exist today. And I think telcos have been deliberately kept outside of this economy by walled gardens for various reasons, because if telcos jump, they jump with so much of muscle and scale that it becomes difficult for many, I would say, unregulated players to get their act together. And our promise since 2018 has been that we want to build that telco economy, the connected telco economy in the mobile monetization space. And that's the ethos of our entire business that we have put together. If you compare, and correct my understanding, Arun, Laksh, if you compare, I think the connected devices in 4G, 7 to 8 billion connected devices to 5G, where I think we would be running north of 100, 200 billion connected devices, right? Your fridge, your watches, cars, everything. The amount of data, the velocity and volume of data that comes into your DMP, it hits you. It's not even comparable with the kind of assets that are today available with even internet providers. Forget about the telcos. You need to build out an architecture which solves monetization at the edge and doesn't solve it in the central data center, the whole architecture that has been put together for the last many, many years by internet monetization players, which were in a cookied environments. Then suddenly they got into mobile and then connected TVs there. Nobody's trying to understand, let alone letting these people talk to each other. There's still no central systems which can let these three screens talk to each other. 5G will just add a complexity which is altogether of a different nature. I think the only thing that we started solving 2017 was we wanted to create a grounds up stack for carriers and OEMs, whereby we have a buy-side stack which directly talks to the advertisers and agencies in a 5G scenario. We have a sell-side stack which directly is connected into your apps, all of your apps, which run whether on your refrigerator or on your mobile phone or on your wearables. They are the sell-side stack. We have the mobile on-device stack, which is our proprietary, which goes into the OEMs like Samsungs of the world and LGs of the world. And it gives you an experience which is very native to the device. There are no pop-ups, no ads, it's just native device experience. And then we have a part of our solution stack that goes back to the telcos, so that the telcos become the gateway of this entire commerce. Everything passes through the telco, and telco owns the gateway. We think the kind of security infrastructure, the kind of proprietariness around data fidelity that telcos have built, nobody can match that. That is a religion for telcos. And we don't think the internet commerce players, the app, and the isolated data aggregators that exist in the market, they can match that. We think all the solution stack that we have put together, we are able to bring the buyers, sellers, and of course the distributors, which are telcos, together. And hopefully we can scale it. It has the elasticity to scale at the level of 5G. If we can do that, we can, I think, fulfill our promise of making telcos really the gateway of internet commerce.
Yeah, I think, Rajat, that brings up a really interesting point, and Arun and Laksh, I'd love your feedback on it. So, Google attempted to roll out Google Fiber. It didn't really go anywhere. Facebook had, their grand plans to connect, rural parts of the world through gliders and balloons, and that never really went anywhere. I think it really highlights that there's something very unique and valuable that telcos are providing to our global economy, really. And I think it's just a matter of making sure, how do telcos and carriers really, take this core advantage that they have in underpinning so much of our modern world and make sure that they're getting the most advantage of, of this valuable service that they're providing. So Arun, I guess my question to you is, from a carrier perspective, how do carriers make sure that they're really, providing the most value, not just for consumers, but also, for their core business, on top of this necessary infrastructure?
Yeah, so I think there are two things that it goes back to all our conversation about the monetization as well, right? That you gain the best value out of your investments when you serve your the customer to the best, the maximum value that you provide to the end customers. So what do they expect? So there are two major areas where they see value. The way they see value is the interaction through these devices, the edge of the network. The edge of the network is extremely important. And I do believe that we tend to treat edge as some sort of a network side of things, but I also includes the device itself into the edge. So the mobile device and the mobile experience that you get is an important aspect. So that's one of the main areas. That's why in the Geo phone, we almost 1/25 or 1/4 of our users use our own devices that was designed for the Indian conditions. We didn't leave it to the smartphones, because still a big part of our consumers do not have access to expensive devices. So we needed to invent a new category of devices called the smart feature phone. And with a smart feature phone like device, that today our consumers consume more than 8 GB of data.
Wow.
So we also build a consumption ecosystem, content ecosystem that we delivered, and including making the user interface easily usable, user experience extremely efficient. And that's one major area that we focused on in terms of increasing the ecosystem. That is one thing. Number one. Number two is the pricing scheme. We didn't want to complicate matters. Before Jio, it was a more of a consume and conserve and consume. People used to buy a package of 1 GB and use it for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, or a 5 GB package validity for 1 year. Whereas we changed the pricing scheme that you get 1.5 GB per day, use it or lose it, for 29 days, right? So it's like a 45, it's like totally a different kind of a consumption model. So these are the things that we drove to deliver value, and that automatically delivered to value to our investors. And what you see is what you get. Very often people assume that today it's about 400 million subscribers. We didn't give away, so we stopped the free like in the first 6 months itself. More than 300 plus million subscribers joined by paying, not free service. So because they saw value in it. And another one thing is the experience of signing up. It was one of the most resistance-free sign up. We gave away these fingerprint scanners to our 1 million fingerprint scanners. We gave away to our retailers who are signing up. So all the data, it was linked to the national database. You scan your fingerprint, it's consumed, and immediately within 15 minutes you walk out and with a SIM that is live and active. So you are able to make a phone call. So those are some of the areas that operators need to focus on to deliver value, not only to your customers, but also to your investors.
And so Laksh, I'll point the question to you. So, Jio has really pioneered some really kind of interesting, unique ways to, take the kind of the network advantage that they have and to, make it work for their core customers. What are some other options that some other telcos are currently embracing?
So if I look at the operators, which is erstwhile Sprint, now Sprint, T-Mobile, Sprint, they've been doing something very interesting on how they're taking the network to the consumer. Their entire thesis of deployment is customer back, which is very interesting. I know there are other players, other operators globally who do this as well. So they really think of in terms of what is the quality of experience that the customer is getting in what area, and based on that quality of experience, and quality of experience being linked to value like churn, gross ads, upsell, cross-sell, which is all the monetization levers. And that is where they want to put more money beyond getting the minimal coverage that you need to support your base. But where do you overinvest or underinvest is governed by what is the QoE that your customers are getting, which entails understanding, for example, DPI, to know where are the customers who are watching more video situated, where are the customers who are playing more games, who will be more sensitive to latency, where are they located? So you place your edge nodes, your mobile edge compute nodes accordingly, you place your network accordingly. So that is one interesting case, I would say, what they're doing. Another situation would be, if you look at the how different operators are partnering, you'll see a bunch of partnerships, again, both T-Mobile and AT&T that have done. So there was the potential Stadia partnership to basically support on the edge. And and put the, let's say, on the edge node, you have the operator partner playing on the edge node, but at the same time, you're doing a B2B2C monetization where you're not just providing connectivity, you're providing a superior experience to the Stadia subscribers or customers. And similar models can then be applied on, I've seen some of the similar things, we have had similar discussions about YouTube, Netflix, and so on in other markets.
Yeah, really, really interesting stuff. And I think as 5G becomes even more ubiquitous, it'll be very interesting to see, what telcos are doing to monetize and provide the best possible service.
Agreed.
Well, everyone, really fantastic insights. Really interesting to hear all of your thoughts on this space. And everyone, thanks for joining us. And for those of you listening, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.